Stevenson on next week. Do you have someone can tell us all about Neanderthal? So whack it on the way home, mate, and thanks for hanging back for us, Lee.
Will do, not a problem. Enjoy.
Thank you. Take care. This is, of course, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine has gone to Sweden. Svante Pääbo, who has been working on human evolution. That is such an understatement because he actually did the impossible and then acted surprised. Genuinely was surprised when he won the Nobel Prize in Physiology, and not quite sure why. Gillian Hovell is with me. She is otherwise known as the Muddy Archaeologist, which, why would you want your archaeologist any other way, Gillian? I know you're going to be the perfect guest. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So, listen, let's do the basics first and then we'll get excited about it. But just tell me what it was for, what he actually did.
Well, he spent many decades, or 3 decades, and they had a very limited amount of evidence for the Neanderthals, which they worked with, really, and they've worked through it all, and they've created the genome for the DNA for the Neanderthals, who are our extinct cousins. And so that can be compared with modern humans. He also found another species of humans called the Denisovans, which were in the east rather than the west, so Asian area, Pacific Islands area. And he hasn't got the DNA of them because there's not so much fossils, but fantastic discoveries about who the humans were connected to. So it's our old story.
His mic drop moments seem to be extracting the DNA from Neanderthal. And just so people know, they survived from nearly 500,000 years ago to about 40,000 years ago. And then he went, I'll just actually pull these 8 mics out of my back pocket. And these, what do you pronounce it? Denisovans, is that it?
Yes, they come from a cave that was called Denisova Cave. Yeah. That was the original reason.
You should ask me, because I went to school with a guy called Dennis Ovens. Sorry, that's the worst joke ever. Let me just...
We won't ever forget this now, then.
So you said he began his work in the 1990s, but at that stage, I think many people said to him, you're barking up the wrong fossil here. You're not going to be able to do this. You know, we've deemed it impossible. But he did it. He got DNA out of Neanderthal, bones. It's
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Incredibly hard to do, and it was deemed impossible, and DNA was still relatively new, so to be able to get it out of just old fossils, basically old bones, as opposed to really living flesh, as it were, really, really hard. Yeah, but he stuck with it.
It's crazy. He found out also that humans had sex with Neanderthals as well, which maybe we kind of knew, but didn't have kind of like the origin evidence, because it comes up in a lot of people's DNA, doesn't it, when they do these tests?
It does. If you live in Western Europe, you've got between 1 to 2% DNA that's Neanderthal, if not 4%. And there's a certain stockiness. There's a shortage of limbs, which I'm fairly sure I've got as well. And but there's also many things. This is why they've really, really given him the prize, is because they can look at some of the DNA from the Neanderthals and find that they have something to do with addiction or blood clotting, and something to do with how stable you are, sort of fertility. You don't have miscarriages so easily if you've got Neanderthal. And they also think there might be some connection with those who've had complications from COVID. So it's not a blame or anything like that. It's not that you're less evolved by having more DNA from the Neanderthals. They were very advanced. So it's done something to our immunity. You can imagine blood clotting being a really good thing when you went hunting, and not quite so good when we reach the age we reach now. So it's not always a good thing, but it would have been great for the Neanderthals. So they're finding medical things about us now in our modern lives.
Right, and that's how it helps. It's not just, hey, look at that. What he's doing. I mean, you'll know this as an archaeologist. It can be pulled in to. It's going deep into the past to help the future, I suppose, is a line that would sum it up.
Yes, definitely, because it tells us about us now, but it tells us about where we came from. And we do know that we interbred between the Homo sapiens and the Neanderthals, but also the Neanderthals and the Denisovans over in the Asian part, they interbred. They even found a first generation, which actually had a Denisovan father and a Neanderthal mother. So literally the two species, and she's tens of thousands of years old, but she was only 13 years old when she died. And so we know that there's a lot of mixing going on, and it's helped to create modern humans in the end, although we aren't coming from them so much, but we have got it deeply embedded in us. And therefore, now we can work out some more medical physiology things for the future. Generations of scientists will work on this now. Yeah, he's created a new science, in effect.
Well, listen, he deserves at least the Nobel Prize if he's done that. But there was you mentioned this Denisovan thing is almost as interesting, isn't it? If not more. And wasn't that something to do with somebody found, because you're all helping each other out. He'd be the first to say, if he'd made an official speech today, he would have said, here's all the things that helped me and all the collective science that helped me. But didn't they find like a 40,000-year-old finger in a cave in 2008, and I think that's where he discovered this new type of human, if new type of living thing, the Denisovans.
Very few fossils from them, and it's purely done through the DNA that they've worked out as a new species. Just staggering. Absolutely staggering. And it was a child, because the bone was still had its growth plates, so they know that it was a young person. But otherwise, it's all DNA.
Wow. His father won, didn't he? His father won the same Nobel Prize in 1982. I think his name was Sune Bergström. Is that right?
I don't know that. That was a new one on me. But gosh, what an amazing family that must be.
Right? That's a dinner table you don't want to be the other kid, you know?
Well, yeah, you'd certainly learn a lot.
What have you won? We've won Nobel Prizes. Don't bring your swimming certificate around these parts. Now, I've got one thing to ask you.
But he's so self-effacing about it. It's so sweet, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so good. I've got one final question to ask you, Gillian, which is, we've been asking people to text in their passions and their interests for our Monday night fan club. Tonight it's Robin Hood, and it changes every week. Somebody texted in the least sexiest thing ever. And then I Googled it. I did a web search on it, and it looked brilliant, which is industrial archaeology. Is that like the history of our bridges and all that?
I would have said it was the least sexiest thing, and then I worked on a site for 10 years which had industrial archaeology. It was a field in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the country, lumpy, bumpy field, very muddy, hence the muddy archaeologist, and it had furnaces from the medieval age and from the Iron Age, and it was really, really important. We did conferences with it and the like, but it took me weeks of saying, so tell me, how do you make iron again? So it takes a while to learn such things, but it was fascinating.
We'll do it. We'll definitely do it in one of the weeks ahead. Sounds really brilliant. We're going to hear that music now. That means the news is coming. Gillian, my favourite muddy archaeologist, thank you for being in the programme.
Thank you for inviting me. Cheers.
Take care. Wow, it's so exciting, that, isn't it? You can read more about it on the BBC website, but call me a traditionalist or just call me a romantic. It's nothing better than just hearing somebody's passion and expertise from their own mouth, you know? I just absolutely love it. That's what radio is all about. Late night radio is the best in the world. We just continue to change things up for you. Coming up next.